Hello and welcome to our virtual science expo. My name is Bailey, and in this video I'm going to be taking you through how to set up and do the mini greenhouse effect. If you would like to follow along as I go through this, you just have to click the link just below the video and it will take you to our detailed activity guide, and from there you can search for mini greenhouse effect, and this will give you all of the supplies, like the procedure for how to set it up, some diagrams, and further discussion in case you still have questions after this video is over. So as you can see in front of me, there are quite a few supplies. I am not going to go through and list them one by one. They are listed on that detailed activity guide. Instead, I'm going to slowly walk us through this model and kind of list off the supplies needed then. Before we even dive into that though, I'm going to talk a little bit about the focus of this activity, which is greenhouse gases and the greenhouse effect that it has. So greenhouse gases are gases that are found in our atmosphere that are really good at trapping and absorbing heat. And because of that, it's leading to increases in our global temperatures, which is again leading to global warming. So that is what we are modeling here. Just an example of some greenhouse gases are water vapor, carbon dioxide, and methane. And you might be wondering, well, how, if the temperatures are just now starting to raise, this is something that we've become aware of in the last few decades, how are these greenhouse gases actually getting into the atmosphere? What's happening there? That unfortunately is mostly due to humans. So human activities are influencing the amount of greenhouse gases that are being produced and end up in our atmosphere. These activities are things like burning fossil fuels, so that's how we heat our homes, it's what we put in our cars to fuel them, as well as deforestation. So forests and plants are naturally really good at absorbing carbon dioxide. It's just part of photosynthesis. They take it out of the air. And we call those carbon sinks. So with the amount of deforestation that we're doing, we're actually removing those carbon sinks, which leads to more CO2 that remains in the air. And for methane is being produced and being put into our atmosphere due to agriculture. So methane is actually just a natural byproduct of cattle farming. It's a natural byproduct of cattle's digestive systems, and the more cattle farming we do, the more methane that we're going to be producing and putting into the atmosphere. So increased human activities like that is increasing greenhouse gases, which is increasing temperature, and that's leading to global warming. If you don't believe me, hopefully you will after this video, because I am going to model that for you, exactly what's going on in our atmosphere, but with what's right in front of me. So we have these two different tanks. They are exactly the same in every way except for one of the tanks, the one that's got this tubing right here. We are going to be adding CO2, one of the greenhouse gases, to it. And in this tank, it's just our control. It just has regular air. Nothing has been added. And the way that we are going to monitor the temperature change is with the thermometers that I have inside of the tanks. And after the experiment is over, we'll see that the tank with CO2, or greenhouse gas added, does have a higher temperature than our control tank. And that's because, like I said, CO2 is really good at trapping and absorbing heat. And our heat in real world comes from the sun, but in this activity, it's going to be modeled from these lamps that I have back here. So I'm just going to switch these on. I even have a piece of tape back here to make sure that the lamps are the exact same distance away from the tanks, so the only difference is going to be the fact that we are adding CO2 to this tank. The way that we are going to be doing that is with this Erlenmeyer flask. I am going to be mixing baking soda and vinegar inside of the flask, and the natural byproduct for vinegar and baking soda is carbon dioxide, so it's kind of an easy way that we can add it into this tank. On top of my Erlenmeyer flask, take this out, it's got a stopper with two holes, and in the two holes we have these tubes that are nicely placed in there. So once I get that chemical reaction going, these two tubes are going to feed into this tank and this test tube, and that's going to be feeding carbon dioxide in there. So that's how we get CO2 into the tank. This test tube over here though, it's got this fun blue liquid, that is BTB mixed with water, and BTB, found right here, is an indicator solution, and so it indicates when an acid is present. In order to do that, it actually turns from blue to yellow in the presence of an acid. And so carbon dioxide, when it's mixed with water, creates carbonic acid. So in this test tube, I have BTB mixed with water. And as I'm producing CO2 and it's being pumped into this test tube, our indicator should be turning yellow. And that's kind of just our backup tester to make sure that we are in fact producing CO2 and that it is getting into this tank, and then we should see a rise in temperature in this tank. So I am going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to start by adding a little bit of vinegar, and I would highly recommend doing this kind of slowly to begin with until you get a feel for how much is too much. That might have been a little too much, but we can see over here it is yellow. We are in fact producing an acid, and over here we've got some CO2 that has now been added to our atmosphere. So if we waited long enough, it would take maybe about 20 to 30 minutes. That's when we would start to see the change in temperature between these two. I am not going to make you sit here with me and wait until the temperature changes. That wouldn't be the most exciting thing to watch. So you're either going to have to take my word for it or click on the link below and set this up for yourself. All of the instructions are there. So I hope you learned a little bit from this video. If you have any other questions, please go look at that detailed activity guide. And I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.